This is the worst operator in Rainbow Six. Playing Sense makes me want to shred my meat with a cheese grater. Sense walls are just the worser version of smoke grenades. They're countered by explosives along with Warden, and I would rather play literally every other operator in the game in basically every situation. Even Blackbeard, who happens to be the 69th best operator in the game. Nice. As nice as it is to be 69th, Blackbeard shields are still just as strong as paper mache, and there's not much going for him at all. Play him like an entry and you might win some gunfights, or you'll just die and regret your actions like I do half of the time that I play him. And playing with Nock is also just a terrible experience now. With all the traps in the game, it doesn't even matter if you can sneak past the cameras because you're just gonna get alerted by the traps. She isn't even silent anymore, so that blows, and the FMG9 is also pretty garbage, along with the grenades that just got nerfed, so yeah, she's literally dog shit, and somehow she's still even better than Blackbeard and Sense. To be fair though, Oryx is also bringing nothing to the table these days. The sight holes and rotates are usually covered by someone else already, and his dash ability is simply not very strong. Every other defender in the game brings more useful utility and is more consistent when compared to Oryx. He's a selfish operator that can be good for a couple different runouts, he can jump up patches, and he's quick to traverse the map, but outside of that, he's really not doing much at all. Tachanka is also a pretty terrible operator. Well, at least his ability is. His fire is literally so bad that most of the time your Tachanka player will just die trying to use it in the first place. Whether the attackers simply walk through it and shoot him while it's out, or he's busy with the reload, the low damage and small area just isn't justified enough to actually use it. The best thing Tachanka has going for him is the LMG, which deals massive damage and has the destructibility asset for some solid plays. If I'm personally playing Tachanka, I'm not even going to touch his ability because it's high risk and isn't worth the small reward of doing a little bit of damage to the attackers. If Ubisoft just made the Shamiko launcher slightly better to the point where it was viable, Tachanka could be a very strong operator. If you want to be stronger at the game regardless of your operator pick though, we need to talk about one other way you can get the advantage, and that's with the Poxonlox charm, baby. That's right. By equipping this bad boy, you'll destroy everyone with the power of the professional Rainbow Six player at your side every step of the way. If you want to get it yourself, simply subscribe to me on Twitch and then link your Twitch account to your Ubisoft account if it isn't already. Honestly, it's my favorite charm in the entire game, which is totally not biased. Plus, if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe completely free and still get the charm. Anyway, I hope you think about it. That's my little promo for this video. Now let's continue with the bottom of the barrel operator dog meat sack balls. Next up, we have Thunderbird. At number 65, her Kona stations are kind of bad, especially when compared to Doc. Yes, you can die and they can still be useful, however, they can be also very useful for the attackers if they gain control of the site. I think she's definitely overhyped and not as good as people think, and if you like her, you're probably copper or just bad or you smell or something, I don't know. Keep in mind, she also has only the one-time sight option compared to Doc with a 1.5, and her secondary utility is kind of weak too. I'm picking Doc over Thunderbird every day of the week, and so should you. Vigil can be a decent pick, but he's simply outmatched by the other defenders. His gadget has fallen out of meta, and most of the time having another operator utility is just the better option. I don't really have anything bad to say about Vigil. He's fine, you know? He's just not like the best, or really even like he's fine, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's move on to Blitz. I personally love Blitz. I think he's underrated and has some wild strategies that he can be used for. The problem with Blitz, however, lies in the high risk and low protection provided by his shield and the kind of like all-in approach to his playstyle. With so many of the in-meta defenders having impact grenades, he becomes even weaker in the lineup, and traps will also just ruin his day very frequently. He can have his moments where he's very strong, but most of the time he's just not. Maybe the shield rework will make him better, but we'll have to wait and see. Unless you're watching this when the shield rework is out already, then in that case, let me know where you'd place him now. Next up is Callie, and Callie would normally be like a bottom 3 operator for me, but with the introduction of Tubero and the grenade nerf, her ability is now much more useful. Because the vertical takes are so much weaker now, not only is she good for destroying the bandit batteries, but having a sniper that can lock down angles on horizontal pushes will be more useful now that those kind of pushes are going to be more common. The downside to Callie is the baiting culture that surrounds her, with teammates sitting outside, holding ridiculous angles throughout the rounds, and not being part of the push with the team. However, if you get up with the team and use her secondary gun as more of a primary, she can actually be a viable pick. Plus, you can do some cool rush plays with barricades, opening them instantly for your team. That, or just open a ton of different barricades around the map to add pressure to the defenders from these areas. Callie's definitely on the come up for me. Ella isn't much stronger than Callie though, being one of the weakest trap operators on the defense. Her guns are fine, her ability is good for info, and occasionally you can even use them aggressively to make plays. You're better off though just placing them around the site or wherever you're playing for some high quality information on where the attackers are coming from. But they're easy to break and their effects are very weak, landing her at number 61. And landing in the next spot is the statistical worst operator in the game, Clash. As bad as Clash is, she can be super powerful on a select few sites, which is why I have her so high on this list. Play her all the time and you're being a detriment to your team, but pick her at the right times and you could completely turn a game around. Not only can she stop aggression, but she's great for information and tilting the other team. As long as you have teammates who can follow you around and play off of you and you're not getting caught off in bad areas, there's a lot of hope for you on Clash. Then again, everyone's gonna be pissed at you for playing her, so kinda like take that information as you wish. Alibi is next up as a pretty decent defender with a passive gadget that's, well, it's kinda mid. Alibi really hasn't been played much ever since she lost her 1.5 sight, but that doesn't mean that she's necessarily bad. Her gun is still really good and she can be super strong on sites with lots of windows that can't be repelled on, like the top floor of Chalet, as the attackers can't hop in through them without getting pinged by the clone. That's what they're called, clones. Since she has the observation blockers, there's some interesting plays you can make when you keep the prismas behind the observation blockers. People that don't drone are obviously going to be surprised by the clones, and the people that do will have to drone all the way past the observation blocker to actually see that there's a clone behind it. Playing around this idea can lead to some interesting interactions. I still think Alibi is a solid operator, but her ability could just be better. Maybe they should bring her prisma count up to 5? Thoughts? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? I think it could either be a lot of fun or super annoying and awful. Fuse is higher on this list than you might expect, but those cluster charges can be very strong for destroying utility using various windows, walls, and floors around the site. While you're probably only going to get kills with it if you're in a low rank and you're terrible along with your opponents, it's still very useful at the higher ranks. Using the cluster charges on reinforced walls allows for a great counter to bandit tricking, and you can even hard breach the wall yourself afterwards. Fuse's biggest weakness is his slow speed and slow placement of the gadget, and with Tubero being the newest addition, he's even weaker. Number 57 is Mozzie. Mozzie is fine, you know. He's fine. If you're picking Mozzie, you're not hurting your team by any means. He can waste time, and having the info from the drones can be good, but most of the time he's just really a worse version of Mute. It's not very often that you actually hack the drone and that drone becomes like a pivotal part of your defense, if you know what I mean. He does have 2 great guns and a C4, giving him not so terrible spot on this list, but we have a lot of defenders to go through, and some are just a whole lot stronger. Like Capitao. Even though he's an attacker and not a defender, he's still a little bit stronger than Mozzie. He gets a lot of hate, you know? So what if his utility is slow, clunky, and mid? He can still be very powerful on a variety of sites if you play him right, okay? Capitao is a very tactical operator, and with 2 smokes, 2 firebolts, and hard breach charges, there are a ton of things that he can pull off in a round. Opening hatches or just new lines of sights to use his bolts from sets up some beautiful plays. However, with that said, the high risk factor, relying on team play, and the clunkiness of his ability lands him in a pretty meh position on this list. Slightly less meh is Amaru. Amaru has one of the best guns in the game, with a great secondary to back it up. She also has flashbangs, which are the perfect complement to her aggressive loadout and ability. Her ability itself allows for fast and aggressive plays, but can also be used strategically in a team environment. Unfortunately for her, her ability is also her biggest detriment, being the main factor in many Amaru casualties. Most times you're better off with something that directly helps the team and has less risk factor. But if you want to just fly in and say, let's do this, then sure, pick Amaru, whatever you want, it's your life. But if you want to do the complete opposite and pick a 0 risk operator, then pick Rook. Even though he's a defender. We're swapping sides again, you get it. Rook is pretty good after getting a buff. Having a 2-time sight and giving everyone on the team an extra 20 health with self-revive is always a good way to go. The more health, the more likely you'll survive your gunfights, giving you more opportunity to collect some kills. Rook armor also guarantees that you get downed before dying, meaning self-revive is always on the table as long as you're not shot in the face. This is great, especially at the lower ranks, but the higher you go, the more enemies will actually land their headshots, meaning the more Rook sacrifices your team will have. He sacrifices the Rook! Wait, are we at 53 already? We're almost through 20 operators. Oh, no, we haven't said Cav. Cav is garbage, everyone knows that. No, I'm gonna have to restart this whole video. Psych, bitch! Psych! I know 53 is a high placement for Cav, but hear me out. Players are neglecting droning and flank watch more than ever before. There are tons of opportunities for Cav to single-handedly win the round if you play it smart. She's high risk, high reward, but I genuinely don't think she's as bad as everyone makes her out to be. If you want a more in-depth explanation and a guide on playing Cav the Omega Genius Unstoppable way like me, then check out this video right here. For now, let's move on. Maverick is next. As a slightly less useless operator now that Tubero's in the game, game because he can stop bandit tricking. With Tubero being able to freeze those walls, it might be the best strategy now to just walk up and map some footholds to stop bandit from being able to trick. If the wall is frozen, you will get stuck in the ice, so just be careful of that. This bandit Tubero combination is going to be really good, and bringing Mav can mess it all up. That being said, Cade is still going to be a tricky one, so I wouldn't be surprised if his ban rate spiked up this season. Mav is lower on this list as I still think he's the worst hard breacher, being very high risk and taking a lot of time to actually open those walls. EMP grenades and other hard breachers are just much safer and more time efficient. Next up is Zero, who's got to be one of the most misunderstood operators in the game. Either you think he's ass, or you think he's the most The thing is, Zero is extremely impactful on the right bomb sites and with the right lineups, but on the wrong ones, he's practically useless. Zero picks can be good, like on Bank and Chalet. These are two maps that the cams are not only very impactful, but the flexibility in the operator lineup allows the space to pick Zero. You don't need an excess of hard breachers or explosives in your team's lineup. On the other maps, not only is Zero much less effective, but the team would benefit much more from other operator picks. The other issue, well, most of your dead teammates won't even get on the cams anyway. Brava was a fantastic addition to Team Rainbow as a Twitch alternative with some super unique interactions. In terms of her actual ability, the Clutch Drone is pretty big and easy to take out as a defender, but it also takes time to interact with the gadget before it gets the hack off. This gives defenders even more time to take out the drone before you hack their utility, and it reveals the position of the drone when you go to hack the utility. I also wish it recharged similar to Twitch so that you could continue hacking more and more if you were sneaky enough. Most of the time, Brava is a little underwhelming and not that effective, but when the defense lineup is right, Brava can absolutely tear them asses up before the push has even started. Then we have Glaz. He's super underrated and thrives in positions that allow for sneaky smoke plays and aggressive entries into the site. If your team is doing a direct site take, he can be the overwatch that allows it all to happen, and since Warden mains are usually off in Narnia like the kill-hungry fiends that they are, most of the time there's nothing that can stop them. Well, except for maybe a lucky spray through the smoke or just a random C4. Number 48 is the Doctor. Doc is one of the most overpicked operators in the game, with one of the best weapons, to be fair, and health stims that will bring you back to full health from any HP. While he is a solid, well-rounded operator, he's still a selfish pick, and most people are just playing him for his extra fragging potential. I mean, that's fine, he's fine to pick, but if you get too many operators like this in a lineup, it can really hurt your team. Number 47 is Montagne. Or Montang, or like however you say it. I'm Canadian, I don't know. Where are my Canadians at? Hit the comments with the Canadian flag or like your pick up your balls, I don't know. Monty is another super annoying operator. He gives so much intel and adds a plethora of pressure on the defenders while being practically unkillable. The constant threat of that unshield and the pressure that he creates causes people to panic and make bad decisions, especially in ranked. The only problem is when they don't panic, well, he can be sort of bad. Sometimes that extra info is great, but a lot of the time you're better off with 5 rifles instead of 4. It's finally happened, guys. IQ grenades are here, except grenades kind of suck now. The upside, however, is that it doesn't matter too much in IQ's case because now she finally has some destruction capabilities, which is exactly what she needed. Being able to see gadgets and ADS placements allows her to not only destroy utility, but refrain from wasting grenades to Jaeger ADSs and Wamai discs. Plus, the Commando is nasty and she's a great fragging op. I do still feel that her ability is pretty underwhelming though. What if Ubisoft added like a scan ability similar to Solus that scans all the gadgets in her field of view for her team? I think this could be the boost she needs, but I'll let you guys argue about it in the comments. Number 45 is Pulse. Pulse is a top-notch info operator with his biggest weakness being the other team is probably heartless, so you won't be able to see their pulse. No, I'm just kidding. His biggest weakness is relaying the information to your team and then them actually listening to you. I swear, people just ignore callouts half the time, or they play Pulse and then don't call anything out. Like, we're a team, guys. Come on. He can still be a self-sufficient operator, though, being able to see 4 enemies through the floor or using the cardiac sensor to clear a path on the flank. He's a solid operator, but the UMP is pretty weak compared to the other defender weapons. The most overbanned and overrated operator in the game has to be Jackal. Not even good. Okay, no, he is kind of good. He can be annoying at times, but he's not like the most broken operator ever. Not only can his job be done better with drones, but there's so many holes and counters to him that it's kind of ridiculous. You can just play Cap, or just hide in a corner off the start of the round, and it's nearly impossible to get tracked, allowing you to work your way around him and still pull off those flanks. He can be great if your team is hunting down a single roamer, but as soon as there's multiple, it's easy to get tunnel visioned on the track defender and become your own worst enemy. Just stop banning this dude. Please. Lucy is next, a great trap operator, but she's just too easy to work around in the current meta. Especially now that grenades are less effective for killing people are going to use them much more for destroying utility now, like her bulletproof wubs. Her loadout is on the weaker side of the defenders, and overall, she's kind of meh. That being said, she's a great source of information for the defense, and she's a good safety net, especially against aggressive and unpredictable opponents. Thorn is next up with one of the best guns on the defense, yet one of the most dog water garbage gadgets in the game. Similar to Melusi or Ella, the traps are good for info, but because of their long activation time, you need to be careful with their placement, or you could end up getting the info a little too late. Sure, they kill people, but that's really only in the rare circumstances, unless, once again, you're dog shit at the game. If you're embracing the run and gun aggression meta we're in, then she's a good pick for that, but if you're more of a strategic player, maybe we just steer clear of Thorn, okay? At number 41 is Twitch. 41 is a great spot on this list. We're starting to get into the stronger operators of the game now, and we're not even halfway through. Let's freaking go. Twitch not only has 2 extra drones, giving her more info than your average operator, but she's one of the few counters to Tubero and many other ops. Getting rid of default cams around the map is great for keeping the other team guessing, and if you're talented and smart with the drone play, she can achieve so much within a round. Like Brava, it's pretty easy for the defenders to destroy her drones if they're looking for them, and sometimes it can be a struggle to be effective with her. I do think she's one of the coolest operators in the game though, with some really interesting plays coming out from the Twitch drones. Next, we hit the gritty with the track slinging superstar Gridlock, gritty moment, skibbity toilet. I'm 24, guys. I'm too old to be saying stuff like this. I don't even know what the gritty is. I know it's some sort of dance move or something. It doesn't matter. Let's keep going. Gridlock has had a major glow up this year, getting grenades added to her arsenal. Even without them, the smokes in combination with the track stingers can create an absurd amount of chaos that can single-handedly draw the defender's attention and make enough noise to cover the audio of a plant. Gridlock is a great execute operator, but the tracks can be used for flanks too. They are, however, very easy to destroy, so if you waver out of this playstyle too much, she becomes sort of bad. Her usefulness in specific situations and her averageness in others lands her at number 40. Then we have Flores. Flores is great for destroying utility and has a great loadout to back it up. The Rotero drones can be fantastic for not only breaking things, but being the perfect distraction, whether you're hopping off and pushing behind it or having a teammate follow it up. He is somewhat situational and can be even useless at times if the defenders are picking operators with not much utility or if you're picking him on the wrong sites. Mute will also completely wreck him, and if you're running him round after round, the defenders should also catch on and start shooting the drones before you can reach your target. And now that you can't cook grenades, Zofia is going to be a major player for removing wall denial from below along with Ash. The introduction of Tubero actively stopping Bandit from being able to place down those batteries is more important than ever, and Zofia is one of the very few operators that can actually do it now. She's also a great counter utility operator, being self-sufficient in burning ADSs with stun grenades and then using the impacts to break the utility. Those stuns are also good to clear rooms if you don't have time to drone, and she's really well rounded. Jackal's overrated counterpart, Thatcher, comes in at number 37. For a guy that gets insta-banned all the time, that's not very high, guys. Are we noticing something here? Are we using our brains? Are we thinking about something here? Okay, obviously Thatcher isn't the worst operator in Rainbow Six, but he's nowhere near good enough to explain being banned literally every single game. EMP gadgets are usually enough to get the job done, so why waste a whole operator's ability on it when you don't need to? Thoughts? The one exception is K-tricking. K-tricking is completely shut down by Thatcher, but very hard to get around with only EMP gadgets. Bandit is still on the table against Thatcher too, being able to trick between the EMPs to get the denial. Of course, Thatcher can also disable a lot more than just wall denial, like ADSs and traps, which still lands him in a solid spot. Nomad is next as a top tier control operator with a well-rounded loadout. Her only weakness is really her lack of destruction. She's very versatile, whether you're using her to deny a flank, a run out, or even using the air jabs aggressively. While the air jabs are fantastic for many things, and you can pretty much always find a use for them in a round, they are fairly easy to destroy, and sometimes relying on them too much can be her downfall. So yes, while they're very strong, you still have to be attentive to them. At number 35 is Castle. Castle is easy to counter if you simply destroy all his barricades with the various different explosives that the attack has to offer. However, if his complex setups are neglected, it can single-handedly be the downfall of an attack. Castle is the master of complexity, taking default things and turning them into a puzzle that the attackers need to solve. If they don't get accurate information of what's going on before charging straight into the building, then they're going to get caught off by a rare line of sight that wasn't previously possible. He's also great for stopping aggressive pushes and is overall a solid pick, as long as you're not castling every entrance into the site and blocking out your roamers like an idiot, okay? Stop doing that. Bad castle setups are equally as hurtful as good setups are beneficial, so you gotta be careful with them. If this were a competitive R6 list, Hibana would be one of the top operators in the game, but when it comes to rank, she's just a little bit weaker. She's still great for opening new lines of sight and is the best breacher when it comes to opening hatches. However, her slower breaching time compared to the other breachers is less than ideal. Her flashbangs and speed make for great playmaking abilities, and creating unique angles angles with the X-Kairos makes her one of the most fun operators to play. I love playing Hibana. I'm having so much fun right now. She's a solid pick, and you can really never go wrong with her. You also can't really go wrong with a Lion pick. Lion is a well-rounded, simple operator that can kind of do it all. His Lion scans are great for team support or just holding the flank. It buys your team more time when it's needed, but it can also be used for gathering control by yourself. Now that he has grenades, he can achieve even more in a lineup, and with a fantastic weapon, he's overall just solid. He's one of my personal favorite operators when I'm playing on my own, so if you're looking for a new main for solo queue, then maybe give Lion a shot. Just above him is my Canadian homie, Frost. I'm a Frost lover, and even with the rework, Frost is a pesky operator that's one of a kind. Frost really thrives on sites with lots of windows, similar to Alibi, being able to place those mats on the hop-ins without the attackers being able to shoot them prior to. If the attackers forget about the mat, or they just straight up don't check, you're basically guaranteed a free kill. You should really be placing them around where you're playing anyway, so the self-revive feature isn't too big of a nerf to her in my opinion. With a secondary shotgun for site setup, a shield, and a 1.5 sight, you can create some lethal solo strategies that give you the advantage. Frost is great, but of course, if the attacker's drone well enough, she's nothing more than a slight waste of time to them. Aruni is up next as a playmaker that adds security to a defending lineup. Protecting utility or just giving info on important doorways, the Syria gates seem underwhelming, but they actually achieve a lot more than you think. With a deadly DMR and a fist that's perfect for site setup, playmaking, and various fisting, she's quite a versatile operator. We're starting to get into ops now that for the most part just lack weaknesses, but maybe aren't as overpowered as the operators above them. Aruni isn't overpowered, but she's definitely very strong. Number 30 is Osa. Osa's the operator that's benefited most by the new nade changes. Sitting behind her shield and forcing people out of positions using the grenades is an easy way to pick off defenders as they run away from them. She's still just as lethal in every other aspect though, being able to cover herself for a plant, dominate powerful lines of sight, or clear a room with a teammate to back her up. Back that thing up! No, that's not in that sense. When she's strong, she can dominate the attack, but when the defenders are prepared with plenty of explosives, she's not going to achieve much with her shields. I'm pretty much always running the 5.56 on her, along with Thermite, who happens to be the next operator. Thermite is fantastic, having both a nasty gun and tactical utility. He is the original support operator, opening new powerful lines of sight for the attackers, droning in the entries, smoking or flashing off the bomb site, and planting the diffuser. You can't go wrong with Thermite, and you can even use his hard breaches for vertical holes if you don't have other uses for them. He's well-rounded and well-balanced, landing him at 29. Wamai is next up. Being able to throw those discs anywhere on the map and on the fly is a unique feature that makes him very versatile. He's a great solo operator with a great weapon, and you can use him like a rank star just to run around and shoot people, or you can play him more strategically, defending utility in powerful positions. You can pick him every round and have no problem, as long as you have some other operators on your team that have some information. His ability is more about protection and team play though, instead of racking up kills for your team. The newest operator, Tubero, if I could have been butchering that name this entire time, is taking spot number 27. He can really do a lot with that gadget, but his best asset is wall denial, or more accurately, time wasting. On sites with important breaches, he's able to waste a ton of the attacker's time, giving them less time to use later in the round. Combine him with Bandit or Cade, and opening breaches becomes nearly impossible. On some sites, this is going to be deadly, but on others, he might come off as slightly useless. Of course, there's also a ton of other perks to his abilities, like freezing yourself to avoid Glaz's thermal scope, or icing up claymores before a hop out, which lands him in a great spot. Speaking of wall denial, Bandit's up next at number 26. With Tubero now in the game and grenades getting nerfed, Bandit is going to be even stronger than he was before. He's still not quite as good as Cade is, and there's still defenders that are better picks, but he's definitely solid. His loadout is top notch, with an MP7 and a C4, or even rock the M870 if you're feeling a little extra zesty. You know what I'm saying? Bandit tricking is going to be huge now that you don't need to worry about nades coming through the floor and blowing your back out instantaneously. And yes, technically you can still nade through the floor, but that 2-second indicator actually gives you plenty of time to get away, so that's not really something that you got to worry about unless you're like, once again, terrible at the game in the dog shit ranks and you suck at the game, you know what I mean? I think Grim can be a little better than Bandit though. Did you get that? That was a joke. That was a bee joke because he shoots bees. Grim is so strong now, and people are sleeping on the bee man more than they should. His bees not only last so long, but their range is massive and give you live tracks on the defenders, aka wall hacks. You get wall hacks. How could you think he's bad? If you're using him on direct sight take, there's not much the defenders can do to fight back besides prey on the retake. The Commando is a top 5 gun in the game, and on top of that, he has a bailiff, so he can use the bees vertically too. If he had any other secondary utility, he'd be even more ridiculous, so luckily he's kept fairly restrained by the claymores and the hard breach gadgets. And honestly, they complement his kit pretty good too. Warden may appear somewhat useless on the surface, but he single-handedly eliminates an entire playstyle from the attacker's arsenal. As long as you play him on sight and use his glasses when the time is right, any sort of Ying, Flash, or Smoke execute is completely shut down. For those rounds where his ability isn't used, he's still got a laser beam of a gun with a 1.5 sight and a C4 to make plays with. Having a Warden every round sends a message, you know? It tells the enemies, hey, you're not allowed to crutch your spam utility, and you're going to need to get things done some other way. That being said, if they were never planning on using the flashes and stuff in the first place, another operator might be more useful. Like Maestro. Maestro was already super underrated before, but now with 3 evil eyes, he's all the more strong. If you place them appropriately, they're going to be difficult to grenade now with the new nade changes, while Ashe and Zofia will just be too busy wasting their utility underneath the site to remove wall denial or on the mirror windows, which they can now destroy too. These cameras are insanely good for destroying attacker drones or just zapping the actual attackers themselves for a distraction. He's clutch late round, has a disgusting LMG, and can even impact trick the hard breach on some sites. If you want to lock down the bomb site, Maestro is perfect as long as you pick a safe spot to play on his cams. You won't catch Finka players on cams too often though, because they'll be too busy being a one-man army. A global heal at the press of a button, a disgusting gun, grenades for destruction, and the best secondary pistol in the game. What's not to love? Finka's only weakness is being shot right in the face. But with her loadout, you can confidently play an entry role or just hold down areas for your team. She's similar to Lion in that you can always pick her and always benefit the team somehow, but she's just a step above Lion in terms of strength. If Finka's loadout isn't good enough for you though, then Ram's definitely should be. The R4C is one of the best guns in the game, and to top it off, we can throw a 1.5 or a 2x sight on it, and then have 3 uncounterable mini tanks. What is that? What is that? What is that? What? What is that? What is that? Ram can smash down barricades at the speed of light, destroy entire strips of floor, blast open new angles instantly, and destroy practically every single defender gadget. I don't understand how people are underrating this operator still. She's still so underutilized, but she is not to be slept on. I'm telling you, please, run some Ram. Ram me, please. When your biggest downside is that you're a 1-speed, you've got a lot going for you as an operator. 1-speed brother Sledge is in the same boat, coming in at number 20. With the old nades, Sledge was in my top 3 attackers in the game, but without them, he's a lot weaker. Still in a great spot at number 20, being able to create tons of vertical destruction, smash new entrances through walls, smash tons of different utilities with his hammer, and smashing people with his gun, and smashing your mom, and still maintaining the destructibility of the grenades. For these reasons, he's still going to be very high on this list. Ying is another highly underrated operator. With so many candelas and smokes, she can single-handedly create a storming entry on the defenders in only a few seconds. She's even more powerful with the assistance of your teammates though, having everyone collapse from different directions all at the same time. If Warden didn't exist, there would be practically nothing that could stop her besides Jaeger and Wamai, but that ever-lurking threat of the Warden is really why she's being held back at number 19. Speaking of Jaeger, he's next up at number 18. Jaeger's fallen off quite a bit since the utility meta a few years ago, but he's come back in Operation Deep Freeze once again. I know we talked about it a lot, but the floor grenades is actually impacting Jaeger quite a bit. Because they're so much weaker now and people are going to default back to using grenades for destroying utility and clearing corners, the Jaeger ADSs are going to get a lot more action. Despite not having the 1.5 sight, the carbine is a very solid weapon and very consistent. Playing Jaeger keeps you passive and patient, playing around your ADSs, knowing you're safe, and forcing the attackers to push into you. That safety net is a pivotal part of his gameplay and lessens that stress in those key moments. Next up is Ashe, who is kind of a beast again. He's kind of a beast. That's not my Trump impression, that's me being excited. Between Maestro having an extra cam and Mira's being breakable with explosives, Ashe is gonna have much more use now. She's gonna get a lot of action. There should always be things to destroy on a round-to-round basis, and on top of that, she's got 2 great weapons and a non-existent hitbox. I don't care what you say, Ashe is still the hardest operator to kill in Rainbow Six. The Claymores fit her playstyle well, but the breach charges are even better, giving her more verticality and more playmaking abilities. Ashe has and always will be a top operator. Goyo is next, and he remains an underrated operator in Rainbow Six still, having 4 different gas canisters that are some of the best crowd control in the game. Place them on barricades and they'll activate themselves once the attackers break the barricade, locking them out for 20 seconds, giving you time to rotate, adjust, and prepare for that push. Place them in other areas and you can choose when to use them. If you feel pressure from one direction, you can choose to pop the Goyo there to stall out that side, or pop the Goyo behind you and pursue the fight safely, knowing you won't get pushed from behind. The fire from these things do so much damage, but if you're not shooting shooting them at the right times or you're placing them poorly, then he's not going to be as good as he could be. Obviously, maybe that was a little too obvious. Mira placements follow the exact same logic. Placing them poorly is going to make her pretty ass, but luckily she's a little more straightforward. I genuinely think you can create a decent mirror setup on any site, but now that explosives can destroy the mirrors, she's a lot weaker than the every game instaban. She's still really good, but instead of locking down a single entrance like a one-man army, the windows will require some extra protection from Jaeger, Wamai, or Aruni, which I think is a great change. Number 14 is Yana. Back when she had grenades, Yana was a top 3 attacker in the game, but she's still very, very strong. Flashbangs are now on par with grenades as the best secondary gadget in the game, and the clones are infinite information that becomes very valuable as the round progresses. Having the late round clone for quick info or droning a teammate into the building with it is 2 of her greatest assets. You can clone yourself, bait with the clones, use your drones more carefree, and on top of all that, she has 2 lethal primary options and the destructibility of the Gon 6. Her clones are so strong, and even without them, you can be extremely lethal. She's basically Ashe 2.0, and if you post up in the right spot with her, her white head will blend in perfectly, giving her the added albino buff. Ubisoft, if you're listening, please take out her white head. This is one of the most annoying As we progress closer and closer to these top 10 operators though, Legion falls out of the running at number 13. Having one of the nastiest loadouts in the game between the T5 SMG, the secondary shorty shotgun, and impact grenades, Legion is stacked right off the bat. Add in the goo mines to complement his loadout perfectly, and you can not only lock down multiple different areas, but be the ideal counter to shield operators. He provides information, area control, shield denial, and deals a ton of damage in the process. He's one of the best solo queue operators in the entire game, and there's little to complain about besides the fragility of his gadget. In other words, shooting or meleeing the goo mines is a simple workaround here if you spot them out. Valk is next up with the best information of all the defenders. You can get easy C4 kills, pull off great flanks, figure out exactly what push the attackers are doing, and know what's happening before it stop meowing! Stop meowing! Before it does. Anyway, this is very powerful, and it only gets stronger the higher you go in competition. Down in the lower ranks, no, she's nowhere near this strong. But in the mid to higher ranks, she's disgusting. IQ is a very strong counter to her, but sometimes even IQ gets to the cameras when it's already too late. Valk is not to be slept on, but with so many strong defenders in the game right now, she's gonna stay at number 12. And just one off qualifying for the top 10 is Mute. Mute is so strong in so many different ways. He can counter Dokkaebi calls, lion scans, Flores, hard breachers, drones, and even Blitz's shield. His information denial is top tier, and his gadget denial is very strong too. He's slightly less effective on console because the SMG-11 is so much more difficult to use on the sticks, but on PC, his loadout is beautifully crafted. He definitely thrives in close range environments, which is perfect in combination with a mute jammer around a corner. Mute is a good pick on literally every site in the entire game. Now it's time to talk about the 10 best operators in all of Rainbow Six Siege, but before we do, I just want to remind you that you can get my in-game Rainbow Six charm right now by subscribing on Twitch, and if you hear my cat purring, it's because he's rubbing his face against my microphone. If you have Amazon Prime, it's completely free, and it's just a beautiful way to not only support me, but look sick while you pound the enemy team. Now let's dive into the top 10. At number 10 is Smoke. Smoke is a top tier playmaker on defense. You can use the canisters passively to waste time or use them aggressively to isolate gunfights and make plays. He's got the shotgun for sight setup, but he's also able to position himself in close range areas where you can just fold people. This is because the smokes allow you to seal that distance. He can also use the smokes to block off angles to retreat much safer too. If you want to get really good with one operator, my recommendation would be Smoke. His skill gap is endless, and a good smoke player can carry their team single-handedly. Number 9 is Buck, and believe it or not, he is the second highest attacker on this list. Defenders are just so strong right now, and we'll get into that a little more once we get to the rest of the operators, but Buck is the one-man army of Siege. Now that grenades are nerfed, Buck is one of the very few options in terms of doing vertical takes from below, and he's the best one for it. Not only that, but his versatility is endless, with map destruction on the fly, the fastest soft breaching in the game, and a fluid playstyle that leaves the defenders in awe. The C8 is a machine of a weapon, and the stuns take these quick plays and make them even flashier. Dude. Whether you're a complete noob or an experienced player, Buck is always going to be a good solid operator to main. Number 8 is Echo, and he is hands down the most underrated operator in all of Rainbow Six. Echo is so strong, being able to stall time all the way from the start to the end of the round. If you use the yokais aggressively early on as the attackers are trying to enter the map, it messes with all the usual timing and it will throw them off right right from the beginning. This time stall is only a start though, because Echo also has 2 top tier secondaries between the impact grenades and the shield, along with a laser beam of a gun in the MP5S. Echo only keeps getting better when you use him aggressively alongside your teammates to grab the round by the balls and squeeze. The yokais not only provide information for these aggressive plays, but they can actively disorient and distract the attackers while your team is getting aggressive on them. Yokai drives in, stuns the attackers, they're looking at it, your teammate swings, shoot them in the face, game over, baby. This combination is one of the most beautiful things to witness in the entire game, but I could talk about Echo forever, so let's move on. Number 7 is Kapkan. Kapkan is one of the most simple defenders to use, but one of the most effective at the same time. This place and go style of play is a favorite among rank stars, and Kapkan is one of the best to use for it. He's a fantastic counter to aggressive, high-risk gameplay, but he can also be clutch late round if his traps are placed near and around the site. Kapkan is a tool that forces the attackers to slow down, check all their doorways, and be cautious, which can put them on the back foot and give your team the advantage. Next up, just narrowly missing the top 5, is Solus. Solus is a very strong defender, being able to hunt down and limit the defender's drone economy, spot safe runouts, and completely shut down plants. Solus's biggest strength, however, is her ability to identify what information the attackers have on the defenders and use that knowledge to make genius plays that work perfectly. This ability allows you to quickly and easily identify the holes in an attacking push and completely shut it down. Solus has so many different uses though, so if you want to learn more about those, go watch this video once I'm done telling you about the top 5 operators. Dokkaebi is going to be our 5th best operator in Rainbow Six Siege. She fits the aggressive meta perfectly and brings tons of information to her team, all at the click of a button. If you're struggling clearing roamers, then Dokkaebi is the #1 pick to solve the problem. You just call the phones, hunt them down, shoot them, and then you get to hack the cameras to get even more information. It's really just beautiful. Here's the thing, teamwork is a difficult part of Rainbow Six. However, the better teamwork you have, the more effective you're going to be in beating the other team, especially if they're individually more skilled than you. Dokkaebi is a fantastic operator to bring teamwork to a lineup without having to even think about it. If your team is simply not as good as the people you're playing against, Dokkaebi is the operator that can keep you in the fight and actually give you a winning chance. At number 4, we have Cade. Cade is one of the strongest operators in Rainbow Six right now. Not only is he a beast when just placing the claws down, but he's also super broken in combination with Tubero or when Cade tricking. He's the only wall denial that can also get hatches, and he's got a sick loadout to back it up. Whether you're in the lowest or the highest rank in the game, he's going to be a strong pick that forces the attackers to bring specific operators or waste tons of time. You know, he's not necessary 100% of the time, but he's still going to be very strong. Number 3 is Ace. Ace is the best attacker in Rainbow Six Siege. It's literally in his name. You literally ace every round, no joke. Okay, well, yeah, it's a joke. It is a joke. His Selmas are not only the fastest of all the hard breachers, but one of the most versatile too. They're great for range or just main breaches, but they're also really good for vertical destruction and defender utility like castles and shields. Because of their quick deployment, a toss of an ace charge is fast and efficient enough to throw down as sound cover before making a play. Let's not forget that he has the best weapon in the entire game with the AK-12. Something about Ace just has the energy to make it happen, and he's earned his spot as the 3rd best operator. Number 2 is one of the newer additions to Rainbow Six, Fenrir. Fenrir is one of the most insanely OP operators Ubisoft has ever made. You don't even need to actively use his gadget for him to be ridiculously strong, but when you do, he becomes even better. Whether you're using his gadget on a roam, on site, or both, you can effectively have enough information to understand everything that's going on around you. You'll never be caught by surprise with Fenrir on the board, and working the rotation of the traps into his gameplay will take him to the next level. Or you can just throw one in a really big room like the lobby of Bank, and if they walk past it, they're going to be able to only see 4 feet in front of them and have to turn around and run across the whole open room while you shoot them in the back of the head. And finally, we have the #1 best operator in Rainbow Six Siege, Azami. Azami has been an unstoppable powerhouse ever since she was released. Her Kivas create instant cover, block out entrances, and can be used in a ton of different ways that are all very strong. Not only can she reconstruct the site similar to Castle, but her Kivas can be used aggressively too to make plays and get the advantage. Even if the attackers are bringing tons of explosives, there's still ways to use her Kivas on the fly to gain the upper hand. You can pick her on literally any site and she's still consistently way too strong. How she hasn't been nerfed yet is a mystery in itself. And that's my list. Now go get my charm by subscribing on Twitch.